Hey friends, welcome to the Moms in Real Estate podcast. I'm Kristen, your host, a community builder, an agent, an entrepreneur, and a mom. And this podcast is for moms that are building a business and they're building life, and we're not pretending like we have it all together. I'm so happy you're here. Let's dive into our episode. Hey guys, welcome back. I am here with my friend and actually one of my business partners, which is always such a good time, Heather Klompmaker. I told you I was going to butcher that, and then of course here I am. That is just how it is. But I am so excited that you're here because not only are you a real estate agent, you're a real estate coach, and you're a podcaster. And so it's always fun. I think people are always interested in podcasting and they don't even know anything about where to start and what to do. So we have so much to talk about. So welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So why don't we start and just by giving the audience a little bit of context about who you are?
Yeah. So I'm a real estate agent in Holland, Michigan, and I've been in the business for 9 years. The first half of my business, I followed all of the traditional real estate advice out there, joined the biggest coaching programs, really dove headfirst into that hustle hard mentality, build a team, do all the things. And about 5 years in, hit major burnout and was pregnant with my third child. And at that point, I had always kind of wondered and flippantly said things like, oh, that's just so ADHD of me. I feel like so many people say that. And at that point, I realized there might actually be more to this. My background's actually in mental health counseling. I have a master's in counseling, but you have blind spots about yourself. So At that point, I decided to pursue the ADHD diagnosis, not knowing for sure if it was going to come out that way. It did. And so ever since then have been on a mission to completely rebuild my own business and to simplify it in many ways. Simplify is my favorite word. It's the antithesis of hustle, and it's how I run my business, and it's how I coach agents. And out of that came the Hey ADHD Agent podcast, which I've been doing for a little over a year now and coaching agents through that. And it's been just a really fun evolution of my career.
Well, I think that's so important because if you're listening to this and you've been building a business and you feel like, gosh, there has to be a better way for me, you have to understand that everyone's business doesn't have to look the same. Everyone can have it look so different. And if you can really identify something like this in yourself and then build a business knowing that, it's going to go so much better. So if somebody's like, oh my gosh, this is me, how would they even know that it's them and then what the next steps are?
Yeah. So I have kind of two different ways I would answer that question. On the one hand, the diagnosis itself is actually irrelevant. If you have ADHD as a formal diagnosis, that's one thing. But if you are noticing those traits in your life, which to be honest, I would say most realtors have some component of the traits, whether or not it's actually clinical ADHD or not. If you're noticing those, it doesn't really matter if you have a formal diagnosis. You just treat the symptoms. If I'm struggling with my scheduling, if I'm struggling with feeling overwhelmed over the time, if I feel constantly behind, these are the things that agents with ADHD say. I don't know what to do each day. I feel like I get stuck for days where I get no progress done because I just literally have this brain fog that's so overwhelming. If you have the symptoms, build your business in a way that works for it, regardless of the diagnosis. But if somebody's like, the diagnosis is important to me, or I might want to look into medication in the future or other options, the first step typically is to go to your primary care physician, and then they're going to refer you out to a testing center or a psychologist, a psychiatrist, something like that to get a formal diagnosis. I do have a symptom checker that I developed specifically for women in real estate with ADHD that goes over a lot of questions where it's not an official diagnostic tool, but if you answer yes to a lot of those questions, it might be worth talking to your doctor about going ahead and pursuing some type of diagnosis.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Can we put that in the show notes?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely put that in the show notes, girls. And I want to know, like, when you made the shift, what's one thing that you were like, this was so significant for me?
I think reducing the number of lead sources I have. We get told that we should have all of these different lead sources because if you are relying on only one or two lead sources, your business could easily crumble. And I get the heart of that you want to diversify. But the problem that most agents have, I would say ADHD or not, is that we try to go so wide that we don't get deep with any one thing, right? And so you're trying to do Sphere, you're trying to do social media, you're trying to do YouTube, you're trying to dabble in open houses and cold calling and all these different things. So you're not doing any of them at a high level. And then you wonder why you're not getting the results. So what I talk with my coaching clients about is that all of those lead sources are amazing. You know, there are a million ways to get a lead, convert a lead, but you first need to get consistent at one. And then the phrase I use is master before you add more. So go deep. I always say on your sphere first. That is the base of all of mine. And there are things that you can do along with that. Social media nurtures your sphere. YouTube is more of a lead generation. So you have to kind of figure out what type of lead generation do I want to do and how can I start simple and then add to it.
Yes, that's such good advice. Do you feel like, so you've been doing the podcast a year, and are you interviewing other women that have ADHD?
Yeah, I've done some of that. And also what I've said about my podcast is that it's not necessarily only how are agents with ADHD doing. I consider myself more of somebody who I could have anybody on there, regardless, somebody who does YouTube, somebody who is good at Facebook ads, whatever. And then I help bring that ADHD spin of how do we make this relevant for somebody with ADHD? How do we make this so that it clicks for the way that somebody with ADHD's brain works?
Yeah, that's great. So what was like kind of the reason you started the podcast, and was it scary to start the podcast? Kind of where it started and where it is now? Like take us on that journey.
Yeah. I had thought about having a podcast for a while because I love listening to podcasts. Yeah. And so it, had been something that appealed to me. I've always loved chatting and talking and all of that kind of thing. And so I was like, a podcast would be a good idea. I had no idea what it entailed at all. So I did what I recommend to everybody. If you want to get better at a certain area of your life, I hired a podcasting coach that showed me how to start the podcast and all of that. And, I have moved away from that. They dig into how to do, coaching programs and offers, but the methodology doesn't really align with the real estate space very well. But I dove into learning how to do it and just said, you know what, I'm just going to try this. And I'm not expecting a return on it right away. I'm going to use it as a way just to connect with people and help them. And the other thing that I like about having the podcast is that that's something that somebody might be searching out, real estate, ADHD, or even just things like how to be more consistent, some of these titles that I use and that kind of thing. And so then they'll stumble across it and then they might have this aha moment of, maybe it is ADHD or maybe it's not, but they still enjoy the content. I have one of my real estate clients who actually listens to my podcast, and she works at her church part-time and is a travel agent. But she's like, I can still relate to all the principles. Yeah. And so for me, it was like, this is a nice way for me to give back to people, to be able to provide the information. And I feel like there's so many podcasts out there on, this is how you generate this type of lead, or this is how you do this. And I would say the gift that most real estate agents have and most kind of industry gurus is to overcomplicate things that don't need to be so complicated. And so my goal is to just kind of be a permission slip for people, whether they have ADHD or not, to say, you know what, I don't have to build my business in this same way. I can do it differently, and I can close still close deals. It's not about of course we want to make money. But yeah, so it's been quite an evolution, and it's also been really fulfilling. I mean, I have had people, one email I had, it was a couple months after I started the podcast, the lady literally started the email with like, your podcast has changed my life. Or no, she said has saved my life. That's what she said. And like, that sounds so dramatic, but it was the first time she felt seen as she continued with her email. And I've gotten so many messages from people, whether it's on Instagram or they email me directly and say, I'm so happy I found your podcast because I could never put my finger on why real estate felt so hard for me when everyone else around me seems to be just doing it. It just seems to be coming so easily, and I feel seen. And so those messages are just like, they light me up and kind of, really keep me going, because that just, I remember that, like, how come all of my friends seem to get it and they seem to not have any trouble running their business? But for me, I'm producing results on the outside. From the outside, everyone was like, wow, you're so good at real estate. Like, you're selling so many houses. But I felt like I was just being crushed under the weight of real estate. And I never felt like I could, like, that I was doing it right. And that was ADHD.
Yeah. And so when you hit that burnout, like, what were some big signs for you? Like, something's got to change.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I got to the point where I was like even if somebody had called me and said, I want to list my house, like, come to me, let's list it today. My thought was like, am I really going to do that? Like, do I really want to spend my day doing that? Like, so it was just like this internal resistance to doing anything real estate related. Like, I had always showed up on social media. I started in 2017 when nobody was doing social media for real estate, and I could not bring myself to post. I spent almost a year not posting. And then when I came back, I was able to do it much more intentionally, but just all the things that I had loved, it almost felt like overnight, I just couldn't do them anymore. And I knew it wasn't depression. Like, you know, somebody might struggle with depression and that causes you not to want to do anything. But for me, it was just this overwhelming sense of just, I can't, it's all too much. And it wasn't like feelings of sadness or anything like that. It was just, I am so overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. And I think, you know, like we all have Macs now, everybody has a Mac, but back in the day when you had a PC and you would get like in college and you get that like blue screen of death and like your computer just needs this like hard reset. That's what people with ADHD get to, or really, I mean, I would say anybody with burnout, but especially ADHD, where it's just like a hard reset and you're not going to just motivate yourself or talk yourself out of it. You have to change things. You have to organize your life differently in order to be able to get back to doing those normal things. And for me and for the agents I coach, I really believe that comes through simplifying and making things as simple and easy as possible, getting that down for consistency, and then adding to it later.
Hey girls, did you know Moms in Real Estate has a referral network? That's right, we do. You guys have to check it out. It's called the Moms in Real Estate Referral Network on mirereferralnetwork.com. And you can search for moms in real estate all across the United States that can be your referral partners. Make sure to check it out now.
Hello, it's Barbara with Your Tax Coach, and I have a tax tip for you today. Do you want an instant pay raise? Of course you do. So if you're making over $40,000 a year in commissions, you really need to be an S corporation. You are overpaying in taxes if you're not an S Corp yet. Let me break it down. When you're an LLC or single member LLC or just a sole proprietor, you're paying federal tax, state tax, and a hidden tax called self-employment tax. It's an extra 15.3% on top of your federal tax rate. So imagine if you were making $100,000, that's an extra 15 grand that you're paying in taxes. So if you switch to an S Corp, it's like getting an instant pay raise. And the bonus tip of being an S Corp is you're 35 times less likely to be audited by the IRS than if you were a Schedule C filing it on your personal tax return. So it's super, super important that all of you listening are an S Corp. And if you want to know how to become an S Corp, DM me on Instagram at Your Tax Coach. It's me in the DMs and I'm happy to answer your questions, or you can go to yourtaxcoach.com.
It's so easy to just keep adding. And I think just even putting that at the forefront, like maybe write it on a whiteboard or something. I always talk about the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, because I have that brain where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I want that. I want this. I want this. I want to take on a new project. I'm a manifesting generator. So it's like, I like all the things, and I have to constantly remind myself, like, keep it simple, keep it simple. So if you're struggling with that, like write it somewhere even would be super helpful.
And you have to take it a step further. I mean, I think it really does involve doing the self-reflection, seeking accountability in that area, all of that kind of stuff. Because in 2018, I bought, back then, you know, like letter board. You remember like the letter boards with like the little felt like letter, like you put the letters in the little felt boards. So I had bought one of those to decorate my office. I had moved to a new brokerage and I put the phrase on it, do less better. I did not follow that. It was front and center, right? Like up on visual. And I didn't follow it because it sounded like a good tagline, but I didn't fully understand yet how hard it actually is to do that. And so it really does take flipping everything you've ever thought about how to run a business, how to build it on the head, and really getting, I like the phrase ruthless simplification. Like you have to be ruthless about, does this actually serve my needs? Is this something that, is actually moving me forward? Because the number one thing that I hear from agents is, I don't know what to do every day. That's the number one. I have a Facebook group and I ask a question on the answers. And one of the questions is, what's your biggest struggle in your business? So much of it comes down to, I just don't know what to do today. And that's because people are filling themselves with, we're told we have to do all these different things, when we've all heard that, that concept that 20% of the things you do produces most of the 80% of the results. And it's so true, but we get so stuck in doing all the things. So you really have to sit, and it's not a one and done. It's a constant, just like decluttering. It's like something that you have to do on an ongoing basis, is continue to declutter your business.
Yes. Yeah. It's not like you ever arrive there. I feel like it's like on every Sunday night when I'm getting ready for the week, it's like something that I'm filtering through my head, is like just what is like prioritizing. And because we could be doing stuff all day, every single day. And it is like, you can just almost be like, what do I do today? And it's not a good feeling at all. So you hit burnout and you made a change, and now you're doing 3 different things, and you're doing each of them with tons of intention. And do you feel like today you're in a better spot than you were when all this happened?
Definitely. And that comes from that constant decluttering of my business and personal life. I will say it has taken some time to get into a good cadence with trying to do the podcast, trying to, I want to keep my real estate business going. That's very important to me. I have 2 middle schoolers and a 3-year-old. So, and then you add in coaching. And so I think that we're always going to have new opportunities in our business, whether it's a new lead source that we're being tempted by, or maybe a separate business that you're trying to run, or volunteering or whatever. And so just for me, it really has gone back to constantly working on, if I'm taking on something new, then something else has to go.
Yeah.
And so with that has helped me, but it is definitely a balancing act for sure. And at first, when I started the podcast, I didn't know where it was going to go, right? It was like, I'm just going to start this podcast. I have this hope to coach. I had done some coaching, actually. One of the first things that I cut when I realized I was in burnout was that I had just finished training for one of the larger coaching organizations to be a coach for them. And I had started coaching real estate agents through that program. And it was the first thing I quit. As soon as I realized I was pregnant and feeling the burnout, I was like, nope, I can't do this. And so coaching had always been something I've enjoyed doing, but didn't know the timing of coming back to it. But when I started the podcast, for several months, I felt like, okay, I'm starting to get into a cadence. But then as I started taking on coaching clients and things like that, I had to have a realization again of, well, this does feel a little bit hard at times, but it makes sense that it does. I'm actually running 2 different businesses, and I'm only one person. And so that epiphany kind of helped me to figure out, okay, how do I put each piece of my business, real estate and then coaching, into their own buckets and give them their own amount of time, and make sure that the things that I have to get done gets done in each business.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like one thing is I started taking on more projects, and I'm trying, I'm very intentional with like making sure I go deep in all of my businesses, but it's really hard when you have a lot going on. So one like secret sauce that I feel like has helped me so much is just like asking myself the question of like, should I be doing this alone, or should I be doing this with somebody else? And so if you're like, hey, I really want to start a podcast like Heather has, like Kristen has, and you're like, I don't know if I have the capacity, maybe ask yourself, like, should I do this with a friend? Like, which can always be fun. Have you ever thought about, like, in any of your businesses, like, is there somebody else that should be involved in this if I take this on?
I have actually, which is kind of fun, and I haven't pursued anything. There is one person who I've connected with through my podcast that I've thought she would be really cool to do something with, but I haven't pursued it.
Yeah, and it's fun because now I'm going to plant that in your head, and maybe next time we have Heather on, we're going to be like, oh, she has a partner in something now. But it's always just something to think about. And I know a lot of women, I mean, I talk to moms in real estate all week, every week, and something that I've consistently heard over the last handful of years is like, they just are so burnt out on production. And it's not that they want to get out of real estate, but they almost need this other outlet. And if you are going to do something like start a coaching program, create a community, start a podcast, and have these other outlets, just like really thinking through like what that looks like, and going to people like Heather, me, and all the other women that are doing it, and even asking us questions. I think that's so important, is asking from people that have already done something that you want to do, because the cool thing, especially in the moms in real estate community, is like you don't have to do it alone, because there's people that are so willing to help and have conversations with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that, we can only monetize so much, right? And so I think that a lot of, a lot of things that we're taught in the industry is that everything is about making a sale, whether it's your real estate business or whatever. And I think that one of the things that is a guiding principle for me, I know it is for you and Randy and so many of the women in Moms in Real Estate, the ambassadors, the vendor partners, is to actually be of service and help. Like if financial gain comes from it, that's fine. But we also want to be collaborative. And that is one of the reasons that I came over to Real with you and Randy, right? The collaboration over competition and just, it's so hard in your own real estate markets to do that. Or when you're in, I was in a brick and mortar brokerage forever that I loved, but you don't get that openness. And it's the same thing with business. Like if somebody here that's listening is like, I want to start a podcast, send me a DM on Instagram, send Kristen a DM. Like we could probably in 5 minutes at least tell you the major things not to do wrong as you get started. And, just be that resource and that help. And I know that so many other women in the community are open to doing that as well.
Well, I think we're all so passionate about like strategizing about things like beyond like helping women just get out of like that hamster wheel. I had a conversation today with someone and she's like, I kept seeing your name and like I was just deleting all these emails and like, cause you go through your emails and you're just like, sure, I see the name all the time, but I'm not reading them. And there's tons of people that I subscribe to like that too. And she's like, I've been doing that forever. And then all of a sudden, like I went to go apply to speak at this thing and I saw your name again. And anyways, my name kept coming up to her. So she starts looking on my website and she's like, I'm just going to book a call and like see where it goes. So I get on the call with her today and I'm kind of like from when you booked, I'm a little confused on what the call's about. And she's like, me too. And she's like, but I had a feeling I needed to sit and like tell you some of my ideas and we could strategize together. And we had such a fun call. So I definitely encourage that. Like exactly what Heather said is we've created a community full of people that are like, we're not about like, oh, is this going to be a transaction or not? It's like, let me just figure out what this person needs, see how I can service them. And if something comes from it, great. If not, then no big deal. So it just like definitely has created such a fun environment and we're so happy you're a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun. And when I think of women in general, I mean, I think most women are functional ADHDers, to be honest, just because we're pulled in so many different directions. And so having a community where you can go and ask questions and get supported and, have people who will lift you up instead of just, in some of these other Facebook groups. I mean, we're all a part of a million Facebook groups. I cannot believe the types of answers you get in some groups versus what you get in Moms in Real Estate. And so it's just, it's just, everybody's at a different place in their business. Everybody is at different levels and everybody has different goals. Not everybody needs to shoot for being the $1 million GCI person, right? Like that was my goal for so long, not necessarily the $1 million GCI, but build the big team and do all the right things and, be known on social media in my area and all of that. And at some point I just had to realize, what do I actually need for my family? What do I need for my own headspace? I heard on another podcast recently that your nervous system is your most important business asset. And that line really hit me because one of the things with moms and with people with ADHD is typically some level of emotional dysregulation or nervous system kind of being out of whack because there are so many demands. And so anything that we can do to try to gain support and community, like those things really do help to then be able to continue on in the things that you have to do.
Yeah, I feel like I had to work so hard on my nervous system for so long. And it is, it's an ongoing battle, and so just even having like, I just went to my chiropractor and I told him, you're probably going to see me every 2 weeks for the rest of my life. Because when I don't go to him, I notice my nervous system like getting out of whack. And it's like, obviously like he can reset my nervous system. He's so great. But he also is like somebody who I can talk through stuff with. And then he gives me homework. So, one thing he told me yesterday is like, I've gotten out of whack again. He's like, you need to go create a space in your home that is just like a safe space for you to be able to go and like reset. Like you said, people with ADHD, they need that hard reset, like that PC computer. And I'm like, I kind of don't have that space. Like everywhere, like I have 2 boys and 3 dogs and a husband, and it's just chaos in my house. And so I have homework right now to go figure that out. But the more you work on it, and if you guys know Elena Key from our group too, she's huge on nervous system work too. We should bring more of that into the community because I feel like not enough people talk about it. But anyways, we could talk all day long on that. I know you're a big podcaster, so I would love to wrap this up and you to share like maybe one of your favorite podcasts that has really been something that you're like, this has helped me so much in my business, or as a mom that you could share with our community.
Oh, that's a hard one. I listen to so many different podcasts.
Or even a recent one.
Yeah, so I'm going to go probably old school and not a direction that you'd expect, but Amy Porterfield, I know that a lot of people have listened to her over the years, and what's funny is when I first started listening to her, I was like, I'm not sure, like the way she talked or different things like that where I wasn't sure about, but I feel like I've gained so much business insight into how to run a business and that kind of thing from her podcast. And then as it relates to even how she runs her podcast, I feel like she is she's a very far out example.
Yeah.
To be honest, for the most part, other than like Moms in Real Estate, I've stopped listening to real estate podcasts because I find that the messages always do more and more and more. And I actually have this like physical like reaction to do more or add this lead source and all of that. So I've stopped listening to a lot of real estate podcasts, and I listen more to things about podcasts. Oh, another one I love is Elizabeth McCravey. She's a website designer, but she just podcasts all about business and being a mom in business, and I really like her podcast too.
Ooh, I'm going to have to check that one out. I love Amy Porterfield, and I have not heard of this other girl. I feel like one I listened to recently that I loved was Tony Robbins. I haven't listened to him in a while, and he interviewed Alex Hermosi, and it was really good. I was like literally engaged the entire time. So, and I love Tony Robbins. I feel like anything he says, I'm very like captivated by, but it was a really good interview hearing, him and Alex's dynamic and just tons of good feedback. So you guys will have to check that one out.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That sounds interesting for sure.
And then if somebody wants to follow you on Instagram, what's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, at Heather Klompmaker. And then the podcast is Hey ADHD Agent.
Yes, we will put that in the show notes that you guys can absolutely connect with her. And thank you so much for being a guest on Moms in Real Estate.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
If you like this episode, make sure to like and to subscribe so that we show up in your feed. And if you want to stay close, make sure to check out the show notes because I have a lot of ways for you to do that.